Well, good morning, everyone. This is John Craig, and you are listening to Let Us Reason Together, the Monday morning edition. I'm so glad that you're here with us. I'm the second day of the week host for this series of shows, and it's based off of Isaiah 118. Come now and let us reason together, says Yahweh. Though your sins are scarlet, they'll be as white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they will be like wool. And this is where we sit down and reason out current events. And we got some current events today that you need to know about because we need to get this word out. And so stick tuned for that. It's where we also talk about or stay tuned, cultural shifts. And of course, this week's Torah portion, we can either push back or push through. Nevertheless, if iron does not sharpen iron, sparks will never fly, let alone ever get a fire going. I do like bringing up controversial things every once in a while. So yeah, just kind of stay tuned for that. And with a little heat and a good midrash, how will our hearts ever get soft and moldable enough to be transformed in the way that the Spirit, the Ruach, wants us to be and have a little fun along the way. So I hope that you enjoy the show today. If you enjoy the show, give us a thumbs up, share it on your social media, let people know about what's going on here on the Monday edition, as well as other things happening on the Messianic Lamb Network. It is Monday, December the 2nd. Can you believe this? The year 2019. It is also the fourth day. We're in a new month now, the fourth day of the ninth month in the Hebrew year 5780. Some people call that ninth month the month of Kislev. And so what's going on today? Some weird and quirky celebrations. Guess what day it is today? By the way, sitting next to me is my wonderful bride. I'm going to go ahead and introduce her because I wanted her reaction on these weird and quirky days.
I think you're going to get it, or whether I'm introduced or not.
It is Glove Compartment Cleanup Day.
I already did it.
You did it?
I've already done
it.
that.
You got ahead of the day. It is Self-Observation Day. How do you do that? Is that like you take your selfie thing?
You sit there and you think about ways. Be honest with yourself.
All right. Okay. How about this? It's the day when the rich also cry. Did you know the rich cry? I guess they do. And here's the last one that, in this list, the day when it, and you fill in the blanks. So it is your day when it. Okay. How about this? It is also Cyber Monday. So people are out there taking advantage of the internet sales are going on. If they missed going out and fighting the crowds, if they're trying to save money for purchasing certain things. And it's also Decembeard. After No Shave November, it is now Decembeard, observed during the month of December.
So do you measure beards?
I don't know. Let's bring somebody on that has a beard. Mr. Mark David Smith. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The sky is falling. I'm going to bring you on. Oh, there you got it. It's Decembeard, Mark. Did you know that it was Decembeard?
Decembeard.
You can continue to have your beard this month. It is official.
Oh, well, I was going to cut it off. It's so funny. The brightness is just like overwhelming here sometimes.
Yeah, there you go. See?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you actually had a beard, then you could talk about it. But, it's just
I just keep my nice
a couple of days of growth does not make a beard, John.
This beard, by the way, has been growing for a long time. It just keeps getting trimmed. So it is. Right?
Jonathan's beard's like this.
Yeah. Jonathan's beard,
bright red,
is hanging down. He's rivaling yours. So,
okay, cool. Yeah, can't wait to see that.
Yeah, red beard.
Beards in prison. Sound like a movie or something. I don't know.
He had to write get permission to grow a beard.
Really?
Yes, you can't just do it.
You got to get permission for everything there.
Yeah, I was going to say there's so many different things I've learned. Let's put it that way. So
yeah.
Hey, here I am. I'm here.
Yeah, good. Hey, we also have back with us on the show,
Woo!
Rabbi Darryl Weinberg. Good morning, Darryl. Woohoo!
Morning.
He's alive and well. See, he's got a December beard going too.
Yeah. A day's growth doth not make a beard.
Well,
but you want me to put him in the intro now? I'm not so sure. Oh, there was a little bit of space down in the bottom right-hand corner of that intro. I think I could throw his picture in there if you're wanting me to add him into the intro.
Just put me as a little splotch. That's good.
A little splotch, okay.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it kind of flashes. It's a subliminal picture.
Subliminal?
Yes,
Subliminal?
like the abominable snowman, but the subliminal
Yeah.
picture. I thought there's Darryl. Darryl's in my mind. How did that? All right.
Well,
hey, so how about some daily quotes of the day?
That's right.
That's going on. I didn't do my daily quotes last week, so I'm going to do daily quotes today. How about the quote of the day? This is from author H. Jackson Brown Jr. Life doesn't require that we be the best, only that we try our best. What do y'all think about that? Okay, positive quote. It's quote of the day. How about funny quote of the day? From Elbert Hubbard. Do you know Elbert? Elbert. Do not take life too seriously. You'll never get out of it alive. Don't take life too seriously. You'll never get out of it alive. Right?
No, I get it. It took me a second because I don't plan on, that song "I'll Fly Away." Remember that song
I'll fly away.
Oh, glory, I'll fly away. I ain't gonna die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away. See,
there you go.
Those are the real words to that song.
Okay. How about love quote of the day? Ready, Sandy? Love quote of the day. This is from Willa Cather. Willa Cather said this: where there is great love, there are always miracles. You know, that's true. When you look at Yeshua. Yeah, great love.
Might have to do with your definition of words to me. I want to go back to the one before that, though. You had one by somebody named Hubbard. What was his name? Ronell?
Elbert. No.
Elbert. Not Ronell.
No,
okay.
It might be Ron's brother.
Ronell's his sister, maybe.
Something. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah. Is that what you want to talk about? Was the author?
No, I just wanted to clarify to make sure that we weren't hearing from your wrong. The quotes were from. Never mind.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. How about this? This is from the Brit Hadashah, verse of the day, John 1:46. Nathanael said to him, "Can any good thing come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." Come and see. It wasn't the first part of the verse. No. The last part. Come and see. That's
Come and see a man. Come and see a man. This would be the perfect place, John, for you to say. And later on in the show, when Mark brings the Brit Hadashah, he'll be talking about that.
That's a good,
perfect place for this.
All right, and you heard it first. Right. So stay tuned because you want to pay attention because we got something special in the Brit Hadashah portion today. Absolutely. And
kind of looks like my name says the sky is falling highest praise. Let's see if we can get it.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, what happened on this day in history? In 1845. Now, of all the different things, when we consider what happened over Thanksgiving, how these millennials are thinking about Thanksgiving. Mark, your favorite people, the millennials. Think about this, 1845, manifest destiny. You know that concept? U.S. President James K. Polk announces to Congress that the United States should aggressively expand into the West. And manifest destiny. And now, with Thanksgiving going on, they're saying, oh, we shouldn't have a Thanksgiving. the political correctness and the modern university systems are teaching that now. How about this? In 2014, where were you on this day in history in 2014? You remember that day when Stephen Hawking claims that artificial intelligence could be a threat to mankind and spell the end of the human race.
Well, artificial intelligence doesn't spell very well in the first place, so that will be a great accomplishment.
Right. Hey, so Mark, you've got some announcements for going on with the Lamb Network. What's going on?
I'm always working on stuff going on the Lamb Network, trying to get things together. One of the things Sandi mentioned this morning before War Room Prayers in the announcements was I am putting together a half hour of praise and worship. I just can't seem to get it to where it'll just broadcast or show up in the live show feed, in other words, where you can pick a show and click on it and then the show is playing live. I can't seem to get that, so I'm working on getting it scheduled say a half hour before praise or before the War Room every morning, and trying to get that. So it be sure to turn your notifications on, because that's where you're going to get a notice that that praise and worship has started. Otherwise, if you just go to the regular YouTube channel, it's not going to do it anymore. And once again, another thing that Sandi had mentioned this morning is the new domain name, which is MessianicLambNetwork.com. There'll always be the Messianic Lamb Radio, because that is our base existence. That's where we started. That's where most people have their bookmarks, and since we're just getting going with this, I've had so many people wondering where the radio station is. New people coming into MessianicLambRadio.com. Where's the music? Where's the radio station? And it's kind of like, even though there is a big sign right on there that says, it's all video now, people don't see that. So trying to get it changed over. If they find the network, maybe it'll help them understand that type of stuff. That's another little thing. And so I was talking to Sandi. I wanted to be sure Sandi knew before I made this public is that I'm starting my own show after the first of the year, called The Compass of Cram, and it'll be me and Darryl doing the show. And so it's just wanting to see what the look on his face was going to be. Because we've made no deals on that, but anyway. But no, Darryl and I have talked about doing other things. So Darryl is going to expand a little bit once he gets his life kind of settled in wherever the Lord is taking him. Darryl's also going to do a couple extra little things there that I'm real excited about, kind of almost taking off my shoulders there on broadcast. But Sandi is, I just wanted to be sure she knew this morning that I was going to do this, because Sandi's been on practically every other show I've ever done. And she won't be a regular co-host on this as much as she's just invited to pop in whenever she wants to, and so that usually means she'll probably be on every show, but we'll take it from there and see what happens with that. And my last little announcement this morning is that I have decided that we are going to change up War Room Prayers just a little bit. We'll do 1 week of War Room Prayers the way we normally do it now, and then the next week it'll be the same host hosting War Room Prayers, but it'll be called War Room Prayers the Musical, and all the prayers will be done by the same War Room Prayer host, but they're going to sing it as though it's a Broadway musical. And so, they'll be able to kind of introduce themselves and stuff. But when it gets to the praise and worship and the prayers, they will be able to sing it. No background music. They'll have to make up their own melodies, but that's in the works too. So.
Yeah, that's good.
By the way, I hadn't told you that yet, had I told you?
Yeah. So we can have songs, that have the same type of show tune melodies, like 76 trombones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
6 prayers that have been answered.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. But you have to sing
And
it.
we'll all gather around to give him praise.
Yeah.
See, there you go. It just flows. War room.
War room, where the wind comes rolling through the prayer room.
All right.
Yeah.
Really,
Darryl hasn't
really
joined
think.
in yet. Come on, Darryl.
You're
Come
gonna
on,
have a
Darryl,
roll.
you gotta respond.
There's no business like show business.
There you go.
Okay, so anyway, there you go. I just thought I'd let everybody know.
That's good. All right. Okay. Well, Mark, thanks for the announcements and the updates going on with the network. And great things happening here. It's always good. And things, keeping things fresh. Okay, so we're going to jump into the Torah portion. And I've asked Darryl to bring that with us and to share that with us this morning. But I have one story to tell real quick. All right. Can we do that? All right. I'm going to take 1 minute to do this, and only in America. But this is a strange and true story of the cigars. Okay. And because Mark, you're from you're living in North Carolina. You're not from North Carolina, but you're living in North Carolina, just down the road from you in Charlotte. This is a true story. A man from Charlotte, North Carolina, having purchased a case of very expensive cigars, insured them against, among other things, fire. And within a month, having smoked his entire stockpile, the man filed a claim against the insurance company, stating that the cigars were lost in a series of small fires. The insurance company refused to pay, citing the obvious reason that the man had consumed the cigars in the normal fashion. The man sued,
And
wait
won.
for it, and won.
I've heard this.
In delivering the ruling, the judge, agreeing that the claim was frivolous, stated nevertheless that the man held a policy from the insurance company in which it had warranted that the cigars were insurable and also guaranteed that it would insure against fire. And without defining what it considered to be unacceptable, he was obliged to pay the claim rather than endure a lengthy and costly appeal. The insurance company accepted the ruling and paid the man $15,000 for the rare cigars he had lost in the fires.
Mm-hmm.
After he cashed the check, however, the company had him arrested on 24 counts of arson. An insurance claim and testimony from the previous case being used against him. The man was convicted of intentionally burning his insured property and sentenced to 24 months in jail and a, wait for it, $24,000 fine. True story.
Oh my gosh! I had heard
in prison. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so much for that $15,000 judgment or winnings there. So, oh yeah.
So it just goes to show you, if you're sitting around with your buddies smoking cigars and drinking margaritas, don't come up, don't act upon the stories that you say. I wonder what would happen if.
Yeah.
Don't act upon that.
Yeah. I mean, he probably should have had 24 claims and not just one claim, maybe. But then it probably would have met the deductible.
Yeah, I love it. That's great.
All right. Intentionally setting fire to your cigars. I think that gives us a good segue into this week's Torah portion.
How?
I don't know how you're going to we're going to go into that, but Darryl's back and he's got the Torah portion.
Well, speaking of fire, in this week's Torah portion, we have Jacob, who has just finagled his brother out of his birthright. And even though God promised it, but he decided to listen to his mother and do it in his own strength. And so his mother says, you better get out of town because your brother is plotting to kill you. That's never a good thing in the family. And so Jacob goes and he starts making his way to his uncle Laban. And he has a dream. And the dream is been made very famous. About the ladder that goes to heaven. We see in John chapter 1 that the ladder is actually Yeshua himself. But it says that in verse 16 of Genesis 28, then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the Bethel, the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven, the Sher Shemayim. So Jacob arose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put under his head, set up at a pillar and poured oil on its top. So he's invoking worship here. And he called the name of the place Bethel, house of God. However, previously the name of the city had been Luz. Then Jacob made a vow saying, if God will be with me and will keep me on this journey that I take, and will give me food to eat and garments to wear, and I return to my father's house in safety, then the Lord will be my God. This stone which I have set up as a pillar will be God's house, and all that you give me, pardon me, and surely I will give a tenth to you. Well, this is a classic case of trying to bargain with God, and it's never a good idea. Oh my gosh. And so, Jacob lays all these conditions and says, well, if God does this and God does that and God does this, then God will be my God and then I will serve him. And we go into the next part of the Torah portion where he arrives at Laban's house, his uncle, his mother's brother, and meets Rachel, his cousin. He falls in love with her. And then in return, and this is a classic example of be careful of what you sow. Paul says in Galatians 6:9 that do not be, 6:7, do not be deceived. God will not be mocked. Whatever man sows, he shall reap. If he sows to the flesh, he will reap destruction. But if he sows to the spirit, he will reap eternal life. Well, even though God had promised Rebekah in the womb, that Jacob would be the one to receive the blessing, when Isaac was getting ready to bless Esau and give him the right of the firstborn and the inheritance, Rebekah and Jacob conspired together. Now, Jacob had a prick of conscience. He knew that this was wrong. And he says, well, what happens if I get found out? And Rebekah says, well, let your curse be upon me. And so he goes ahead with it. He deceives his father. Well, he goes to his uncle Laban and agrees to work for 7 years to marry Rachel. And he wakes up in the morning, and I guess you got to be pretty drunk or something like that in order to not know who you're marrying and who you wake up to. So he wakes up and finds out it's Leah, and he comes to Laban and he confronts him and says, yo, what's up? to quote Mark. And he says, well, it's not our custom to, marry off the younger. So, but he says, okay, fine. Have your week and then we'll give you the other one. You can work another 7 years for her. And so Jacob's whole persona, and even the name Jacob means supplanter, or one who grabs the heel. And his whole life had been spent scheming and finagling and manipulating and stuff like that. And just like this yo-yo with the cigars that you just talked about, and figuring that he was going to pull a fast one, you can't pull a fast one on God. And even the way that he approached God, well, if God does this, that, and the other thing, then he'll be my God and I'll worship him. But he's got to meet my conditions first. And God spends the next 21 years beating that out of him through one struggle after another. And so by the time you get to Genesis 32, when he wrestles with him And even then, he's still fighting with God, and finally puts out his hip. And Jacob goes from wrestling with God to clinging onto him and saying, I will not let you go until you bless me. And then he says as he's about to meet Esau, he knows he's got no bargaining chip anymore. And he just throws himself on the mercy of the Lord. And he says, God, I can't do anything about this. I need you. And that's when God delivers him. And instead of Esau killing him with the 400 men, he actually runs and hugs him and reconciles with him. And so it's a lesson that Jacob had to spend over 20 years learning the hard lesson that, number one, you don't bargain with God. And number two, you be straight up front and you let God work things out, because oftentimes we're presented with solutions that if we compromise, it may be easier. And it never ends up working out for us, because God expects us to be holy and righteous. He expects us to walk with integrity. And Jacob had to go through much heartache. He calls God later on in front of Pharaoh, the Lord who has delivered my life from all distress. And I think David uses the same title. He describes God in the same way, that he's delivered me from all distress. And our distress is usually caused by our disobedience and us opening the door for the enemy to get in there and cause havoc in our lives. And so I think it's a wonderful portion of Torah to help us to understand that you don't come to God with conditions. You come to God completely broken, completely with the intent of saying, not my will be done, but yours. And then watch God do it. And it requires us to walk in faith. And that faith is hard sometimes because we don't see what's happening. All we see is a big, massive roadblock. Whereas in fact, God has shown there's already a secret path. You know, he lead, yea, though I walk through the valley of a shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because your rod and your staff will comfort me. He delivers us. He walks us through the paths in order to lead us to the promised land. But sometimes, because of our own machinations and our own designs and our unwillingness to deal with hard things, it ends up being so much harder than it really needs to be.
All right. Well, thank you, Darryl, for bringing that. It brings a lot of thoughts to me, but got my brain going. But Mark, I'd like to hear from you, your thoughts about this week's Torah portion and what Darryl was talking about.
Well, excellent as usual, Darryl. Darryl always has great insight into the Torah portions, and this it's somewhat of a given, or it should be, that we don't just come to God with our own agenda and our own. That's the way I kind of hear what Darryl's saying is that we have our own agenda, and unless we literally bow down to what he has put together and what the plan and the step by step, the plan, that he has, that the Lord has, unless we use that plan as our plan, it's never going to work. It may, it's almost like again, following with what Darryl had said there, it's how many people is it that, I just want to get saved so that I can not go to hell. It's almost a negative opinion of what we need to do. And it doesn't, we all know, all of us that have searched out the scriptures and know the Lord and know what the Lord has laid out in his plan, we all know that it not only will not work to get you saved, but it will not work for what happens afterwards. And so anyway, that's kind of the way I look at it. Great message, by the way.
Yeah, good stuff. Sandi, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with Darryl that the bottom line is we can't move God's hand. We can't put conditions on him. We can't force him. Keep us all on, man. We can't force him to do things the way we want, because when we do, we'll ultimately probably get our way. And what we find is that we have this long road that we have to go through afterwards. I'm going to give a quick example. One that I've given before, and then a current one. You've heard me say the story of, it's not a story, it's true, that people prayed away the hurricane years ago. They prayed away the hurricane, and then but the hurricane is what brought the water for the land in preparation for the crops. And they faced drought, and the crops didn't come out and things. And they were like, God, why? And he's like, you said, let's not have the hurricane. So the waters didn't come. And here's a current example for us. Jonathan potentially, he was supposed to be where he's at, which is 45 minutes from us, until possibly December, unless y'all moves, which we're believing he is going to move. But December of 2020, Texas doesn't want to air condition any of their prisons. There's just a couple that are, which is ridiculous because it's hot in Texas.
Yeah.
So where Jonathan's at is actually a unit that does have it. So they're moving. If you're healthy, you have to leave. And so potentially he could be moved in April. And I was like, Father, and we've all prayed this, including Jonathan, because Texas is big. He could be 10, 12 hours from us. Who knows? But he could be close. But nonetheless, we've said, Father, our heart's desire is that Jonathan remains close, but let your will be done, because you know what's ahead, and you have the way of working all this out and bringing him home and restoring his name, et cetera, et cetera. So, we tell him what we want, but ultimately we want him to move in his perfect will, in his perfect way. Also, I find it very interesting on the story, too, because we know that Jacob, we know he got the birthright. We know that he did that, and then he took the blessing. And the sages say that it was always meant for Esau and Jacob to fight side by side. Jacob fighting spiritual battles and Esau fighting the physical battles, but in the Lord. And when Esau forfeited his blessing, when he had no care for it, then Jacob took on both roles. And I'm just saying, this is sages. This isn't from the Bible itself. This is just some understanding. And that with that, he also took the bride. And I find that very interesting. He took the bride and to complete his role, et cetera, et cetera. And I find it interesting that there are so many levels and ways to look at it. But the bottom line is, would Yahweh have moved and orchestrated things so that he received the blessing too? I believe yes. And of course, Jacob and Rachel forced his hand, so to speak. And there's a whole, we can look at that in many different ways. We have actually, I'm not so sure Isaac was actually deceived, but nonetheless, we need to always, just as Darryl said, we pray. We can let him know what we think. He already knows, but we ultimately say our life is in your hand. You orchestrate my path and you lead the way. I'm not going to bargain with you. I'm not going to blackmail you, so to speak, but I want to just do your will and go where you go, do what you do, and say what you say. And that requires us to get our hands off.
Well, we have an example of that that's going on right this very moment. God has told us that we need to leave here. We need to go down to Niagara Falls. And I had some conditions that I put before the Lord to get down there. And one of them was that we had to be released financially, because I didn't want to go down with the struggle that we're going through up here. And what God made very clear is that that's not the way it's going to happen. And the doors on all the other options began to close. And so what I tell everybody is that I wanted to go down with all of my ducks lined up, and then God just went and shot all my ducks.
Sorry.
And he says no, because what he wanted for us to do was to let everybody in Niagara Falls know about the need, that we need to come down there, and we're going to need some help in finding a place, because we don't know the area. And so the way we ended up coming up here was that I had put it out through the network, and there was someone who popped up and said, hey, we have a place available. Well, so we sent this email. But the reason why God said to let everybody know is because they haven't really, their hearts really aren't for what God is doing. They're playing footsie with what we're doing, but they still want to have their church lives and everything else. And so, the expectation is that we would travel down there and put ourselves out and everything else, and that they wouldn't really contribute much. Well, God is saying that's not going to happen anymore. And so we put this out there, and all of a sudden over the weekend, this whole thing blows up and everybody's ready to walk away. And so, now we're dealing with this, but hearts are being revealed in all of this. And Milena has been telling everybody, she says, the very reason that I didn't want to let anybody know what the need was is because I knew exactly what was going to happen. And God said, well, but that's what I want to happen, because things need to be exposed. And so even though it makes it uncomfortable for us, because now we got to deal with a whole poop storm, and, people are just, flying off all over the place. It's crazy what's happening here. But it's in order for that which is buried and that which is hidden to be brought to the surface. And this is what God does all the time. And he does it very gently. He does it very craftily sometimes. And it's over sometimes a long period of time. But eventually, my father-in-law, who's passed away, Milena's father in Bulgaria, said one time, no matter how many coats of paint you put over, rust will always come through eventually. The rust will always come to the surface. And the rust is the truth. And you can put as many layers as you want over it, but eventually it's going to come out. And what God does is he exposes it. Yeshua says that whatever is hidden in the darkness will be brought to the light. But the problem is that it usually involves us becoming very uncomfortable and stepping outside of our familiar zone. It's not even a comfort zone. It's a familiar zone, because most people are walking around in uncomfort. But it's what they know, and so they're willing to put up with it.
Right. Yeah, that's really
there
good.
There he goes, preaching again.
That's a good word. I mean, those.
Sorry, I
know,
can't.
this whole life is about the journey, and that journey is not that our journey is comfortable, but that the Father is more interested in our character development, and he uses all these things to put it together. And if we're not paying attention, I mean, just think about how there's an increase in intensity to that. Even if we are paying attention, there's still increase in intensity. I mean, from the point of fleeing from Esau to the time that Jacob returns, fleeing was one thing, but coming back and then facing the army of Esau was a whole nother deal. But every step along the way, I believe, was all about the character development of Jacob.
Something else that you said, Darryl, that I know it's almost time, but you had said that y'all wanted them to get involved in the move, and it did expose the hearts, and we've experienced that even with the move here.
Yeah.
But imagine for those that are going to come alongside you, then they get to be part of the blessing that goes forth. If people would choose the other side, which will we choose? Will we choose the road of blessing, or the road where we become the one who separates brothers?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing going on in Kenya right now. We got a whole thing that's blowing up over there because the ministry is literally erupting. It's mushrooming. But then now there's a campaign in order to destroy it. And God is exposing all of this in remarkable ways. And I'm just sitting here looking and going, oh my gosh, and seeing how God is handling all this. And it's, for us, it just shows the power and majesty of the Lord. And I'm blown away by it.
Yeah.
I'm going to shake everything that can be shaken as a line for the song.
There is a shaking going on right now in the spiritual realm. Silos are getting knocked over, and there's a whole new paradigm that's coming.
Yeah.
A lot of moving and shaking going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's right.
Hey, John, can I just interject something there? I'm glad that Darryl has solidified that our God is a hunter. That's what I like. He's maybe a duck hunter, but at least he's a hunter. And I like that. So you have your proof here. And I've decided to do a segment on my new show called Poop Storm. And so you heard it here first.
You heard it here first on the Monday edition of Let Us Reason Together.
Right.
Poop storm and hunting ducks, duck hunting. All right. All right, very good. Hey, thanks, Darryl, for bringing that. Some good discussion came out of that. And, and I'm just going to put a little plug in. Y'all, if you're listening and you're getting some things out of this Torah portion and this Let Us Reason Together, give us a thumbs up and share it on your social media. I just want to share that as we move into our next segment. And this is something that everybody needs to hear about. And I say that every week, but the reason why I'm saying this is because I want to bring these cultural issues to the forefront. This week is truly cultural issues, not so much as political, but we can always go political. But this is an article that I picked up over at stevequail.com, and it's on his page right now. It's taken from an article from the fellowshipoftheminds.com. Name of the article is Walmart, Amazon, and Target are selling a book for children as young as 5 to summon demons. Yeah. And this was posted by Dr. Eowyn December 1st. So this is a recent article. This is what the article talks about. Walmart, Amazon, and Target are hawking a children's book of demons. That's the name of the book, to kids as young as 5. Hiding behind the label Paranormal Parody, the book contains the names and sigils of demonic entities and teaches little children how to summon demons. And sigils are a symbol used in magic for the pictorial signatures of angels and demons. And the book is published by Canadian publisher Kiyama Press. The author of the book is Canadian illustrator and occultist named Aaron Layton, whose Facebook profile picture is his black cat Darryl in a witch's pointed hat. And so here are some things that are listed over at Walmart and Amazon. Is posted. This is what Amazon says about the book. Don't want to take out the trash tonight? Maybe you're swimming in homework. Perhaps that big bully is being a real drag. Well, grab your colored pencils and sigil drawing skills and dial up some demons. This paranormal parody is filled to the brim with funny spirits more silly than scary. And age range, 5 to 10 years, grade level, kindergarten, 5 to kindergarten to 5th grade. And it's 48 pages. About the author, Aaron Layton is an award-winning illustrator and art director, as well as a fan of all things occult. His first book with Kiyama Press, Spirit City, Toronto, was published in 2010. Aaron lives in Toronto, Ontario, and his free time wrestling with a black cat. Here's some reviews of the book. Layton's renderings of the multi-eyed, multi-armed, sharp-toothed demons are outlandish without being creepy, and the creative concept will likely inspire some readers to create demons of their own. Here's another report. I wish I had this book when I was a child, warding off the creeps and crawlies underneath my bed, unaware that the right guidance, I could have been harnessing their supernatural powers for my benefit. That's from John Martz, author of Bert's Way Home. Here is something else. Below is reader's 1-star review of the book. This is purely satanic. What kind of children's book teaches kids to summon demons and write sigils? This is degeneracy, its fullest form, and makes me sick that even allowed on the shelves of any store. Want to know what makes it worse? It teaches kids the original Greek, Hebrew, and Egyptian names of these malicious demons. Keep your kids away from this book, and if they get their hands on it, somehow burn it. Although Target did offer the book, they seem to have removed it. If you go to target.com, it says product not available. So way to go, Target. If they're, we've had so much to say about Target and the things that they've done.
I have a lot to say about
Target. I still have a lot to say, but at least they removed it from their website. But hey, this is what's on the list for the Christmas holiday season. So, Sandi, you got some thoughts?
I have thoughts. Guys, do we not understand this is an attack to literally destroy a generation? First off, we tell the kids that they're not male or female, and they cannot know or understand that, and they get to choose a child. Yeah. And then we try to destroy them, their thoughts, and make them all autistic or sick or dead by vaccines. And then we're teaching them to summon demons to destroy the remnant of anything that's left in these kids' life. Guys, it is literally they're literally destroying. They've already been working on the generations. Absolutely. But right now we're talking about literally destroying any vestige of life in these kids, because demons are real. You cannot play around with that. Those kids do it, and some of it, guess what? They get might be more than oppressed at that age. It might even be possessed. There's a difference. Yes, there is. But this is real, and they're playing with something. If everything, that society, the world, everything is literally trying to wipe your kid off the map. Get them out of Egypt, folks. Get them out of the school system. Watch what they do. Watch when they're online. Yeah, help choose their friends. You have been charged of them. You raised them, and you've got to teach them. Stop letting everybody else teach them. But guys, guard them, because everything is out to destroy your grandchildren, your children. And guess what? It might take some comfort out of your own life. If you're a grandma or grandpa, maybe you have to get more involved in raising them. If you're a mom or a dad, maybe somebody you have to do with less income. I don't know. But you need to care enough about this generation that you guard every part of their life, because the evil world is really out there to steal, kill, and ultimately destroy them. Not by and by, but right now, at the precious age they are, from right out of the womb. So guys, all I'm saying is you can't, this is not just a game. It's real. And it will change your household. It will change them and destroy their life and destroy your home. So,
all right, yeah. I mean, some big things. I mean, this is pretty radical. I want to hear what you have to say, Darryl, because I mean, that's your neck of the woods up there in Canada. That's where this publisher is from. But this war on our children, that still continues.
I've just started a series that the Lord laid upon my heart this past Shabbat on dealing with the Ahab, Jezebel, and Jehu spirit and what we're fighting against. And whatever was hidden in the background it's full on now. So the enemy has enough confidence to think that he can come right out and expose what it is he's doing. And he doesn't think that we have any power to fight this. There were, in the townhouse complex that we live in over the summer, there were a couple of kids, young girls, who my son had told me had a Ouija app on, and they were using this thing. And I went out in the backyard, and I just, I really got after them. And I said, do you have any idea what you're doing? I mean, one of the kids was like 7. And I said, do you have any idea what you're doing? Do you know that you actually summon evil spirits with that? Do you want those to come into your home? Because if they get in there, they're going to cause all kinds of problems. They're going to possibly hurt you. And then she looked at me as if I had slapped her. And she says, well, I don't want that to happen. She says, that they're going to come in there. I said, you have to ask to God for forgiveness, and you have to get rid of that thing. And that little girl went home so scared. But you know what? It is so pervasive. It is being pushed upon us. So it's so much in our face. And it's just like the whole, what's going on with the impeachment hearings in the US. I mean, it's flat out. They don't care whether what they're doing is illegal or not. It doesn't matter anymore. They think that they have enough power and control in order to, do what they're going to do without any consequences. And we need to push back on this. So Sandy's right. It is an all-out war now. And the believers have to stop being evangelifish. We've got to start, pardon me, phlegm. We've got to start taking a stand, and we've got to start being warriors for God. One of my favorite verses in all of Scripture is Psalm 144:1. Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. We got to get out there and we got to start battling, and especially for our kids.
Amen. Amen. By the way, I'm going to bring Mark in to get his input. There was an article over at Natural News. on Saturday from Mike Adams. It said this is the last Black Friday before America erupts into political and spiritual chaos. And he did say this, going with what you're saying, Sandi and Darryl. He said the real goal of the radical left, of course, is to destroy all that is good. And he goes on and talks more about some of the things that the leftists are driven by the literal demons that have infested their once human bodies. And if we look at it, it is about these radical leftists, the left-hand path. That's where they get the name, which is it goes back in history. It comes from the left-hand path is the occult path of and bringing about the destruction. All of the elements that they are bringing to the forefront in our culture is all about to destroy all that is good in order to tear down society and out of chaos rebuild it into their own world order. And this is what we're seeing, and that's why it's all completely in our face right now. The sky is falling. Also,
literally,
the sky is falling. I want to hear from you. What do you got to say, Mark?
Well, the sky is falling. It's as crazy of a saying as it is what we're listening to each one of us saying, because as of right now, the world is totally askew of reality, because demons, angels, evil, anything evil are all a part of cartoons that are being placed in front of not our children, not my children, and not my grandchildren. Well, at least 2 out of 3 of our, are being placed in front of their face as babysitters, so that they watch hour after hour after hour after hour of demons and aliens and all of this kind of stuff that is totally negative, totally against the God, and it's being embedded into the kids' psyche, and they're hearing this, they're seeing this. And I'm thinking when Darryl's telling the story of catching his kids, or catching some kids, doing this, and he says this to them. And my thought, before the little girl got scared and realized that this is not good, my thought would be that probably at least 90% of most kids would just laugh and say, "Oh gosh, I saw all that you just talked about on the cartoon I watch every morning while I'm eating my breakfast. It's no big deal. It's all of that stuff, that spiritual negative realm or positive realm, is actually just cartoons anymore."
Yeah, but that's why I was almost yelling at her
I get it.
To scare her.
I get it. But Darryl, I don't know. I don't witness this, but I kind of do, is most kids even laugh at that kind of stuff because their parents have given them that kind of authority over that. It's just, I laugh at it.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is literally where we're at today. Not that I'm instilling fear or anything like that. There is a hope, but there's only hope in us that realize that these things are evil and they're wrong, and they are what is taking over the planet that we live on. It's the only planet we have. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big I love sci-fi stuff, and I love anything new and what they're coming out with. There's a couple of new shows I'm watching right now that's really good on sci-fi stuff. But there's that reality is that sci-fi wants to take you to someplace else and get away and set up a new society. And most of the sci-fi shows that are set up now are setting up, it's like there's a show called Mars that's pretty cool. And it's in its second season, and I like the concept they're doing, but it's the same thing. It's getting away from that which is on earth and setting up new societies. We don't have that. That's not reality. The reality is this is the only planet we have. And even though spiritually we're only visiting this planet, it is physically the only one we have. And spiritually, those demons are not visiting. They are here to stay. They are here to dominate. And until we get that concept, until we understand that, the concept of the little girl running away or going home because she's scared, I say is more few and far between when you confront them. That's my point on that.
Over in scripture, it tells us that we're not even supposed to mention their names.
That's right.
And here in this book, they were wanting to tell our 5-year-olds the names in Greek, in Hebrew, in ancient Egyptian, the names of these demonic beings, so that their names will be on their lips, and every time they say it, it's a whistle call.
Yeah,
it's a whistle call to invoke their power. And Mike Adams over in this other article says, no more pretending. The demons have come to the surface and now demand the total destruction of all that is good. And we have seen during the Obama administration, it was during that time that we saw the rise of the independent media, and where they've started pointing out how these demonic influences are affecting our culture and our society in every realm and the full spectrum of it. And there's plenty to see and enough out there to get us all depressed. But in reality, it's brought a lot of people to the point that their eyes have been open. And a lot is really resting upon us now as the body of Messiah, is what are we going to do about it? Are we going to say, oh, it's just the sign of the times? But if Yeshua tarries and it's another 100 years, it is our responsibility to stop the darkness and to put an end to things like this, and to contact whomever we can contact. We should contact. Perhaps somebody's contacted Target, and that's why they pulled the book from their website. Perhaps Walmart needs to know. Perhaps Amazon needs to know. We don't need to be selling these things in our bookstore and especially selling to our kids. These things need to come with a warning label.
You bring this into your home, then you just invited the demonic, just mere possessing it.
Yeah. And it is true. The full indoctrination is in, I'll say this, it's in full effect. And when we see what's Darryl, you brought it up, on apps, on our phones, on the computers, what's on the television, what's on the different shows and programming for our kids, it is a full onset of war against this next generation, and it is ours to stop that. And so interesting cultural shifts. That's what we've been talking about today on this section. We're ready to jump into our next segment with the Brit Hadashah. I've asked Mark to bring that this morning. Mark, what do you got for us?
Well, let's see. You mentioned something earlier, and thank you for the nice promo that you gave me for this little segment there. We're going to John 1:41 through 51. And I, because they're so short, I always love to read them because there's a context there that we should follow. And of course, I like to look. It's just not the words and what they say and what the sod level and all this. I like to take it from. It's almost, I look at it and I see the whole section here, and it's like I can see it from the middle out. Interesting. I don't know how to explain that anymore. But so John 1:41 starts. He first found his own brother Simeon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah." He brought him to Yeshua. Yeshua looked at him and said, "You are Simeon, the son of Yochanan. You shall be called Cephas," which means Peter. reading my own words in another translation here. It's kind of hard to do. Verse 43, the next day, Yeshua decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now, Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Yeshua of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Let me stop here and give an opinion here. When I read things like this, especially from the prophets, the writings, the Brit Hadashah, any of that type of thing, my mind immediately goes to the fact that as it is, in my opinion, based on what I learned very early on, which was one of the reasons why I decided not to follow into the Christian lifestyle, but follow into the Messianic lifestyle, is that I had been taught that when early on, when they were making copies of Torah, they would take one symbol, one letter, and out of the text, they would see it and they would make a copy over here. They'd look, they'd check, they'd look again, they'd make the same symbol, check, double check. And I'm sure there were even more checks and double and triple and quadruple checks. That was really only ever done with Torah. It was never done with the prophets, the writings, the Brit Hadashah. These are, to me, they are just history. They are the Word of God. The Word of God is in them, but Torah to me is the inexplicable, infallible Word of God, and so when we read things like this, I find it so hard because it's been translated so many different times. We do not have the original text. Please, if anybody ever tells you this is from the original text, please turn away and run. Don't listen to another word that person says. There is no such thing, and that's my opinion. Nobody's shown me or proved it to me, but I would be a little weary of that anyway. But when he says here, we have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. I find this so hard to accept in that the way it's said and what they were talking about and how they talked. Of course, it's a different culture, a different society. These people, these men knew of the law of Moses. They knew of Torah. Even though I'm sure none of them had a copy of it, they were well versed in this because men do know this. And so it wouldn't have taken them much, but there's still a little understanding that needs to be known here. For instance, like when Yochanan first saw Yeshua come up and he says, behold the Lamb of God. How did Yochanan know that this was Yeshua, the Lamb of God? They were cousins, yes, and so on and so forth. But this is a little bit different than saying, "Hey, Yeshua, hey, everybody, this is my cousin Yeshua." He called him, "Behold, the Lamb of God." And there's his father is a priest, and the priests are the ones that say whether or not somebody is, a sacrifice is the right without spot or blemish, like Yeshua was. And so Yochanan, being of that descendant, he had his father's, anyway, all that kind of stuff. Without going deep into it, I want to keep getting deeper, and I can't do that. So when Philip said to him, "Come and see," Yeshua saw Nathanael coming toward him and said, "Behold, an Israelite, indeed, in whom there is no deceit. Once again, the wording in all translations, and I tried to go back and look and see different, they're all a little bit whacked in this one here. And you have to understand that they're not just getting a revelation from God. This is not a spiritual encounter, yet the words kind of mix the two. To me, they all knew what was happening, and when Yeshua was baptized of Yochanan, they knew what was happening. They knew that they were talking among themselves. They were the first on the scene to know that this Messiah was most likely the actual Messiah that they had been looking for. It's the same way so my point in all this is that we need to be spiritually discerning of people and what they know, who they know. And I mean, even in a lot of different things that we've talked about yet this morning, and I kept thinking of this when we were going through, is that we all need to be more spiritually aware of what people are bringing us, what they know. Be careful. I mean, y'all hear me talk about, that, you can read articles and see videos and books by people that you don't know whether or not they're telling you the truth or not. These men knew each other, and they knew that if they were talking about here is the real Messiah, not one of 19 other messiahs walking around on the face of the earth at that time. There's a difference in what they knew because they knew each other. And it's almost like keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. Well, I don't think of friends. These guys didn't have enemies like that, but they did have people that would lie to them and deceit, give them deceit. And I think this is what they were talking about. I think this is what we need to pay attention to and recognize. So there you go.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Mark, for bringing that. Darryl, what are your thoughts on this Torah portion as Mark was bringing that to us?
As we've heard many times, truth is the first casualty in war. And we're in a war right now. And I am seeing, again, I can't emphasize this enough. There are things that are blowing up in the spiritual realm right now because the whole paradigm is shaking. And most Christians aren't going to make it because they have no discernment, they have no spiritual sensitivity, and they're not even interested. And when you start to bring them a spiritual message, what Nathaniel recognized, I mean, all Yeshua did was come and tell him, I saw you under the fig tree. Well, he didn't see him in the physical. He saw him spiritually. And so one of the things that he was responding to is that he recognized right away that Yeshua was omniscient and that he was able to see it. And so, well, okay, so all I needed was one proof. And yet you got people who claim to worship God today, and signs and wonders and everything else have happened in their lives, and they're still blocking all that up because they don't want to deal with it. It's unknown. And the churches, it all goes back to the churches. The churches are starving people spiritually today. I remember I walked into one Messianic synagogue years ago. A friend of mine whose wife had grown up Messianic. Now, this guy wasn't a believer. His wife wasn't a believer, but her parents were. And so her mother went to this congregation. I had come out of that congregation years ago. And they had started a new congregation is what it was. And I walked in there and I saw a whole bunch of people that I hadn't seen for 10 years. And they were in the exact same spiritual condition that they were when I had seen them 10 years ago. What I saw was a spiritual concentration camp. They were only getting enough. They were only getting enough just to sustain them through the day, but there was no growth, there was no discernment, there was nothing. And I'm thinking, I look at the majority of the church today, and even pastors who are my friend, and these guys are going to get obliterated with what's coming.
Right. My goodness, that's so truthful what you said, Darryl. And when we think about it, is we have a responsibility. Jacob had to get kicked out of the nest for him to get to this place spiritually where he needed to be, and he went through a lot. And I can kind of see where, Darryl, you left that congregation as they're planning new places. Had you stayed, had you remained, it's kind of the reality of what would have happened to your walk. Would you have grown? Would there have been maturity that you've had because of moving forward in your walk? That's spiritual concentration camps. That's very.
I actually
interesting.
wrote that down because it's spiritual. I had to write that down. So.
And that's what they did in the Nazi concentration camps. They gave those prisoners just enough food, not enough food to
help them
thrive, just enough food to get them to the next day. And then they also gave them fluoride, which kept them dumbed down so that they wouldn't rebel against their captors. And, that's essentially, isn't that what Hasatan's doing to much of the church today? The body of Messiah is keeping us, not us, so to speak, but keeping the body. If we're not willing to daily come and see our Messiah, to have that daily inoculation of, then what happens to our walk? What happens? And, we've seen that people that we've known, they've either gone backwards or they are in the same place. And that breaks my heart. And here, like things that we're seeing happening in a life of worship, lots of challenges, but we're seeing the blessing of God because we don't want to be in the same place. We want to move forward. Very, very important.
My wife got a revelation from the Lord yesterday with this whole thing that's erupted now in Niagara Falls. And the Lord spoke to her and said, these people think that they're serving me in their churches, and they're not. And this is the big problem, is that when people do church, when they play church, and they get involved in this program, that program, they think that they're serving the Lord. But I'm always brought back to Titus 3:14, which says that our people must learn to do good deeds to meet urgent needs so that they may not become unfruitful, talking about the people in need. And the body of Messiah is a community. And what people don't want is community, because community, if you've noticed, is inconvenient. You'll get the phone call at whatever time, you've got something planned, and you've got to put that aside in order to go meet the need of your brother. The church doesn't want to do that. So we've got our schedules. And when we did the city taking back on Yom Kippur on October 9th here, and we went out and did battle in the city, one of the things that I felt that, and I don't get messages from the Lord like that often. I don't operate in the prophetic all that often. But I felt the Lord just yelling at me the night before we were about to go do the city taking. And the basic message he was telling me is, who do these people think they are that they're going to slot me into their plans? And he was telling me that you're going to preach this message the next morning to the city takers, because this wasn't my congregation. This was the people that we had gathered together to go out and do battle. And God was saying is that the audacity of these people. And it was bad. And this is the same thing that everybody else is doing now, is that there's this complacency that we have, that we're going to figure out how we're going to do things. And if it inconveniences us, forget it. It's not going to work that way. And what I've been telling people for months now is that what once was tolerated in the church is not going to be tolerated anymore. And God is starting to sweep away all the dross. He's starting to get rid of everything that is not of him.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, thanks, Darryl, for that. And Mark, thanks for bringing this segment of the Brit Hadashah today on Let Us Reason Together. I really appreciate y'all's input. It really brings us to the end of the program, not the end of it's just a beginning for the next step, right? So we've got some business to do as the body of Messiah. We've got some business to do to get this, continue to get this message out. We're doing that here on the Messianic Lamb Network, and the things that are happening, as well as in our various congregations and across not only cyberspace, but wherever we're at. And we need to be that. We need to be that voice. And if you're a lone voice, the only person in your community, then be the voice. Because if you'll be the voice and you don't give up, the Father will use you. And so I want to give that word of encouragement. Well, I want to say thank you so much, Darryl. It was really, really good to have you back today on the show. So glad that you were with us, and looking forward to having you back again. And Mark, thank you for your input and your leadership here on this network, and appreciate that. And you're joining us today, and your name of the day, AKA the sky is falling, right? You can actually look at it as Abraham looked at the sky from the other side, as looking down upon the stars. We did that in a Torah portion a couple weeks ago. Your descendants will as many as the stars of the sky, and the Father was bringing in from his perspective. That's what we need to have, is that perspective. Sandi, thank you for your input. I always love having you with me by my side on this on the program. So with that said, I want to encourage everybody to give us a thumbs up and share this program. And as we go out, I want to say shalom, and until next time, bye.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.